In the early morning hours of November 13th, 1942, the last signal from the battleship Hiei reported uncontrolled flooding and a loss of steering. Then, only silence. The first Japanese battleship lost in the war became a ghost, its demise fueling dozens of conflicting accounts from both American and Japanese forces. For over 7 decades, the truth of what really happened was lost with the ship. Until a deep-sea submersible brought back the first images of the wreck. It is a scene of utter devastation, with the ship inverted and a large part of its structure missing entirely. What does the debris field, miles away from the main hull, tell us about a catastrophic event that happened long after the battle ended? And how does this discovery finally answer the one question that has puzzled historians for 76 years? Did she sink, or was she deliberately destroyed? The answer lies in what our remotely operated vehicle cameras captured 3,000 feet below the surface in the waters of Iron Bottom Sound. The debris field of the Imperial Japanese Navy battleship Hiei stretches over 2 miles, far too extensive to be explained by battle damage alone. More tellingly, the torpedo impact patterns match perfectly with Japanese long-lance torpedoes, not American weapons. These were not battle wounds. They were mercy killings. After 76 years of conflicting accounts and historical debate, the physical evidence is unambiguous. Hiei was not just allowed to sink. She was deliberately destroyed by her own navy, making her the first Japanese battleship in history to be sacrificed rather than surrendered. To understand the magnitude of this decision, we need to travel back to the early 20th century, when the Japanese Empire was determined to challenge Western naval dominance in the Pacific. Launched in 1912, the Hiei represented Imperial Japan's naval ambitions in steel and iron. At 31,000 tons and over 700 feet long, she was a technological marvel, one of 4 Kongo-class fast battleships designed to outrun what they could not outfight. But Hiei was more than just a warship. She held a unique place in Japan's naval hierarchy as Emperor Hirohito's personal naval transport. In 1921, when Crown Prince Hirohito made his famous European tour, the first foreign trip by a Japanese royal heir, he sailed aboard the Hiei. Her decks were specially modified with imperial accommodations. This sacred connection to the divine emperor transformed Hiei from mere military hardware into a floating Shinto shrine. Her loss would later become unthinkable, tantamount to losing a national religious symbol. After being temporarily demilitarized under the Washington Naval Treaty, Hiei underwent a radical transformation in the 1930s as Japan prepared for war. Her armor was thickened, her power plant upgraded, and her distinctive pagoda mast, the tallest in the Japanese fleet, made her instantly recognizable. By 1941, she had been reborn as a fast battleship designed to escort aircraft carriers, capable of 30 knots despite her massive size. When Japanese aircraft devastated Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, Hiei was there, serving in the screening force for the carriers that launched the attack. For the next 10 months, she participated in an unbroken string of Japanese victories across the Pacific. The imperial narrative seemed unstoppable until Guadalcanal. By August 1942, the strategic picture had shifted. American Marines had landed on Guadalcanal and captured a crucial airfield, later named Henderson Field. This primitive airstrip threatened Japan's ability to reinforce its positions in the Solomon Islands and protect its major base at Rabaul. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, commander of the combined fleet, knew that Henderson Field had to be neutralized. After several failed attempts using cruisers, he decided to deploy the ultimate weapon, battleships with their massive 14-inch guns. On November 12, 1942, Hiei and her sister ship Kirishima departed the Japanese base at Shortland Island with a flotilla of cruisers and destroyers. Their mission was to bombard Henderson Field into oblivion and clear the way for Japanese troop landings that would recapture Guadalcanal. The plan seemed foolproof. American intelligence had failed to detect the battleship's approach, and the Japanese force expected to achieve complete surprise. Hiei led the formation toward Guadalcanal, her massive guns loaded with special fragmentation shells designed to destroy aircraft and installations. There was no reason to expect anything but another Japanese victory. What happened next would shock both the Japanese Navy and the world. Just after midnight on November 13th, as Hiei and her escorts entered Iron Bottom Sound, American radar detected their approach. Despite being massively outgunned, Admiral Daniel Callahan led a force of cruisers and destroyers to intercept the Japanese fleet. What followed was naval warfare at its most primal and chaotic. The two fleets interpenetrated in the darkness at point-blank range, sometimes less than 1,000 yards apart, practically touching in naval terms. Ships fired wildly, often unable to distinguish friend from foe. Searchlights cut through the darkness, followed instantly by salvos of gunfire. In this chaotic melee, Hiei's size became her greatest vulnerability. American cruisers and destroyers concentrated their fire on the massive target. Within minutes, Hiei absorbed an incredible 85 direct hits. While her main armor belt remained largely intact, her superstructure was systematically destroyed. The most critical damage came from the destroyer USS Laffey, which approached within 20 feet of Hiei's side. So close, the battleship's massive guns could not depress enough to hit her. The destroyer raked Hiei's bridge and pilot house with 5-inch shells, killing much of the command staff and destroying her steering control. By dawn, Hiei was in dire straits, locked in a counterclockwise circle and unable to escape. Her distinctive pagoda mast, once the pride of the Japanese Navy, now resembled a burning steel skeleton, visible for miles. As daylight broke, American aircraft from Henderson Field, the very target Hiei had come to destroy, began systematically attacking the crippled battleship. Wave after wave of SBD Dauntless dive bombers pummeled Hiei on November 13th. Her anti-aircraft crews fought valiantly, but without maneuvering capability, she was the naval equivalent of a punching bag. By afternoon, fires raged uncontrolled throughout her upper decks. Ammunition stores were exploding, and flooding had become unmanageable. At approximately 1830 hours, Hiei sent her final message: uncontrolled flooding, steering lost. Then, nothing. The first Japanese battleship loss of the war had occurred, creating a propaganda crisis for an empire that had portrayed its naval forces as invincible. The Japanese military leadership responded to Hiei's loss with immediate censorship. All mention of the battleship's destruction was purged from media reports. Families of the crew received vague notifications that their loved ones were reported as deployed elsewhere. Even within the Navy, discussion of Hiei's fate was forbidden. This institutional silence created a vacuum that was quickly filled with conflicting accounts. American forces claimed a decisive victory and reported that their aircraft had sunk the battleship. Japanese survivors, when finally debriefed, gave contradictory testimony. Some said they abandoned a sinking vessel, while others insisted the battleship was still afloat when they departed. For the Japanese public, raised on stories of samurai who chose death over surrender, the idea that an imperial warship, especially one connected to the emperor himself, could be captured was unthinkable. The government exploited this cultural context by erasing Hiei from the narrative, creating a ghost ship whose fate remained officially undetermined. This conspiracy of silence continued for decades. After the war, Japanese and American historians attempted to reconcile contradictory evidence, but reached no consensus. American claims of sinking Hiei conflicted with Japanese records, suggesting she remained afloat long after the last American attacks. Yet no Japanese account adequately explained her ultimate fate. The coordinates of Hiei's sinking remained classified in naval archives, and as veterans aged and died, the truth seemed destined to remain buried forever. Families of the crew never received proper closure, and naval historians listed Hiei as one of the great unsolved mysteries of World War II. It would take 76 years and revolutionary technology to finally break this silence. In 2018, the research vessel Petrel, funded by the late Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen, began searching for Hiei using advanced multi-beam sonar capable of mapping the seafloor in unprecedented detail. The search team meticulously analyzed both American and Japanese battle reports, navigation logs, and witness accounts to narrow down the potential search area. In February 2018, at a depth of approximately 3,000 feet, sonar operators detected a massive object with the distinctive outline of a battleship hull. Remote-operated vehicles, equipped with 4K cameras, descended to investigate. What they found shocked even experienced maritime archaeologists. Hiei lay inverted on the seafloor, her massive hull upside down in the mud. More surprisingly, a substantial portion of her bow was completely missing, and debris was scattered over a 2-mile radius, far too extensive to be explained by battle damage or a simple sinking. Most tellingly, the vehicle's cameras captured clear evidence of torpedo impacts along Hiei's hull. impacts that could not possibly have occurred during the battle. The damage patterns precisely matched the distinctive signatures of Type 93 long-lance torpedoes, Japan's own weapons. This physical evidence finally resolved the mystery that had persisted for over 7 decades. After the battle, with Hiei crippled but still afloat, Japanese commanders faced an impossible choice: attempt to tow the massive vessel to safety under continued air attack, or prevent her capture by destroying her. In the end, honor prevailed over practicality. Japanese destroyers were ordered to circle their flagship and deliver the coup de grace with their own torpedoes, a naval equivalent of seppuku, the ritualistic suicide of samurai warriors. The remote-operated vehicle footage showed multiple torpedo impacts from different angles, confirming that Hiei had been circled and systematically destroyed by her own escorts. The massive explosion that removed her bow occurred after the battle, when depth charges and torpedoes were deliberately detonated to ensure her destruction. This discovery forces a complete reinterpretation of November 13, 1942. American forces indeed crippled Hiei and made her recovery impossible, but they did not deliver the final blow. That responsibility fell to Japanese sailors who carried out one of the most difficult orders imaginable, to destroy their own flagship rather than risk her capture. This archaeological evidence aligns perfectly with Japanese naval doctrine and culture. For an imperial warship, especially one with direct connections to Emperor Hirohito, capture was considered more dishonorable than destruction. The physical evidence at the wreck site tells a story of deliberate sacrifice rather than combat loss. The psychological impact of Hiei's destruction cannot be overstated. As the first Japanese battleship lost in war in modern times, her sinking marked the end of Japanese naval invincibility. More significantly, the fact that she had to be scuttled by her own forces represented a devastating admission that the Imperial Japanese Navy could no longer guarantee the safety of its capital ships. In many ways, Hiei's destruction represented a turning point in the Pacific War. After her loss, Japanese naval strategy became increasingly defensive and risk-averse. The willingness to sacrifice one of only 10 battleships in their fleet signaled a recognition that material resources were finite and irreplaceable. The wreck of Hiei today serves as both tomb and testament. Over 300 sailors perished with the ship, making her resting place a war grave that deserves solemn respect. Yet the archaeological evidence she provides finally gives closure to families who never knew the true fate of their loved ones and historians who debated her end for decades. In finding Hiei's wreck, we have not just located a lost warship, we have uncovered a pivotal moment when imperial pride collided with military necessity, and the Japanese Navy chose honor over capture, a decision that would foreshadow the increasingly desperate measures of Japan's final war years. The silence that followed Hiei's last signal was not just radio silence. It was the sound of an empire's confidence breaking. In her inverted hull and scattered remains, we can read the beginning of the end of Japanese naval power in the Pacific. If you found this deep dive into naval history fascinating, help us continue our exploration of the ocean's greatest mysteries by subscribing to Ocean Attacks. Hit that notification bell to join us on our next expedition as we uncover more secrets from the deep. Every week, we are bringing lost history back to the surface. Leave your questions below about what shipwreck we should investigate next, and dive into our playlist of Pacific War discoveries. This is Ocean Attacks, where history is not just preserved, it is revealed.